patch 1218, the world's patch. All right, so I like that they brought back a classic look for it because everybody wants their familiar champions. This is probably the favorite. Yeah, this is the most popular champion in each role right here. So iconic. I love that they did this. World's patch. So small, we should expect small tweaks. Kind of weird that they did such big changes to champions like Maokai and Hecarim right before Worlds because Udyr, Maokai, Hecarim just way too strong. Nocturne was as well. Way too strong champions. Fascinating that they put them all up there. They're definitely going to be part of the meta. We'll get into them. Ashe, Q bonus attack speed increased. Now, she does get play as support, but it's very rare in pro for her to be played as a support because she's very exploitable. So this right here, a buff to her attack speed, might result in some teams that want to get some compositions that want to focus around Rift Herald, right? Especially 8-minute Rift Heralds where Ashe is basically the best champion that you can have in bot lane after Ziggs. So best in slot if you want a marksman, Ashe in bot lane is the very best one for getting Rift Heralds. So this is a meaningful change for Worlds. Bonus attack speed going up by 5 up to 15 at the highest ranks on her Q. Which is a fairly big bonus, all right? And especially since this is what they're maxing second, you're talking about spikes at level essentially 9, 10, 12 is when this is being felt. The thing that pro lanes do about it, though, that with Ashe, you can't sit back. If you sit back and try to just W poke, you'll get beat up. A lot of these teams will actually go Q at level 1 and try to force a fight early because this is a distinct advantage that she has over a lot of champions. And if they are relying on a spell, then the persistent damage here makes a big difference. So expect to see her. Hecarim, huge problem. Hecarim was our S plus last patch. Basically, if you wanted to climb, you should pick this champion and no other champions. He was in a completely busted state where you take man immune and just like you could do whatever you wanted after that, and it would be way too strong. Base health going down by 25. Doesn't really affect his jungling, but affects his top a little bit. The physical damage AD ratio going down by 5 is a huge deal because it's your spam spell, right? So it's just like 5, 5, 5. You know, it becomes 12, 15, 15, 15. Increased damage per stack also going down by 1% per bonus AD. This one, not as much, but it is a percent, right? So when this is stacking up, this all in all, the Helichopter versions of Hecarim getting a pretty big nerf. Now, this was the problem ability. Right. The Q'd buff and the damage buff was all great, but it was the W giving him that much more healing that was kind of ridiculous. Percent bonus mitigation, post mitigation damage healed, 30%, 2.5 becomes 25, and 2 per bonus AD. And it's halved for people that aren't Hecarim, right? So this is a fairly substantial amount of damage, especially when you're getting into those big team fights. Now you're doing 12.5 from other people instead of 15, and you're doing 25 yourself. So this is a huge amount. I guarantee you that this is still on the forefront of pro players' teams. They're going to test it. Overall, they really did hit this hard. It needed a hard hit, and we'll see where this comes in. Unsure yet where to think of it, but probably based on where he was, even taking a wall up, still going to be part of the metagame, depending on whether or not teams want to play carry out of the jungler. First item, second item are huge spikes for Hecarim. After that, he starts falling off. Kalista, the dominant player in Eastern Leagues, loses 30 health at level 1. And this is a huge deal because this is the difference between having one more auto attack than other teams, right? 30 health at level 1. She was crushing level 1s. She won't be able to crush them as hard, and depending on the pairing, you may not even be able to do it. So Kalista probably drops off significantly with this nerf. She'll still get played as a counter pick, and if a team wants to have priority through bot lane, and if they get a priority support like Karma or Zyra. Kayn was another huge benefactor of the tank switches, right? The fact that Udyr, Maokai, Hecarim were all strong meant that Kayn was going to be strong. And Kayn basically needed a nerf because of other champions. Darken damage is going down by 1.5 for your bonus AD, 1.5%. It's actually not that bad. It is his spam spell, but it's not so bad. Lee Sin, Expect, especially the Chinese junglers, to bring this champion out because health growth is going up by 6, and the spell vamp and life steal is going up actually pretty significantly, considering late game scaling that goes up. All things told, this is going to make Lee Sin tankier, which makes him a lot safer for late game. All right, it's going to reduce that drop off that he gets. So a lot of teams are going to like Lee Sin early. They're going to want to play through priority of lanes like, let's say, Syndra Lee Sin, for example, that very easy gank setup, and then they can transition into late game. So Lee Sin will definitely make it into Worlds. Lulu was our number one problem in the bot wave. Move speed bonus. Whimsy just got nailed here. 5% move speed. The disable duration when you're playing polymorph goes down for a quarter second, which is massive. And the cooldown is being normalized to 17 to 15. So overall, huge nerf. She's still going to be one of the most popular champions to play. Readjustment on Maokai, and this is where it's kind of interesting. The late game, there are a lot of videos of, for example, Odo Omne just sitting there and taking damage from 4 champions, and every once in a while he just autos a minion and he just heals it all back. So they're trying to get rid of that effect. They don't like the meme effect going on. 2% at highest levels being nerfed. Bramble Smash being buffed against jungle. So it was already getting bonus damage in the jungle. Now it's getting a significant bonus to this. 80 damage bonus, right? When you think of the Raptors, the one of the things that you can do now is actually just with 2 Qs, you're basically wiping the Raptor camp. So that is a big difference. A lot more teams are going to be looking at this in the jungle as well and expect it to be a flex pick, right? It's definitely playable. You want to health stack. When we talk about the E right now, we're going to see these abilities. You want to use Ruby Crystal over Amplifying Tome. It's tempting to use AP items, and in fact, his AP, his magic damage is so high that I do believe that Sorcerer's Shoes is actually the best purchase on him, depending what your team needs, right? But that flexibility is going to be huge. The fact that you can play Demonic Embrace and have a massive spike in AP, the fact that it's going to help you kill tanks, the fact that you deal multiple instances of max health damage. So he's going to win the tank v tank, and then Bruiser versus tank, he's just going to outscale the Bruisers. So that leaves you with this really weird, like, narrow niche of champions like Nasus. And honestly, you'd most times invite your enemy team to play Nasus. So a lot of things going for Maokai, despite the nerf to the healing here, and then also a small nerf, teeny tiny 5% on the AP of this, but it's still 12% of your bonus health, right? You're just better off hitting this with your body, maxing health on the Maokai. You're still doing a lot of damage with this ability. Still a 1-point wonder, even though it scales up by 50 per rank. Like, the other effects that it does all come off of 1 rank, so basically still want 1 point in the E. But I do expect to see him in the jungle, and in the jungle, I definitely will see some Sorcerer Shoes. This is probably one of my favorite new picks to do, so keep on checking it out. Some bug fixes, and these might be massive. The Q, sometimes if their model was facing you and right in front of you, when you Q'd them, it would actually put them behind you, which was not an effect you wanted. You actually had to aim your Q away to knock them back, and apparently that's not going to happen anymore. And sometimes the R was narrower than intended, meaning that the 5 things, if your champion model were thin and running away like a Nidalee, you could run in between the roots and actually get away. We'll see if this actually undoes that change, whether or not it's making it so that there's a blanket that no one can fit through. Misfortune was number 1 AD, health growth and AD growth decrease. So doubling down on the fact that you want this as your early game laning champion, expect to see W as level 1, and then E for poke, 1-point wonder, and then maxing Q. Still probably relevant, and you're going to have some lanes where you have a lockdown support like Amumu or Nautilus that's trying to hold them in place for you to then deal all your splash damage. Nocturne was our number 3 jungler, and he got a little hit as well. Half an AD per level. When we talk about level 11, when he's really trying to get in, that's 5.5. And then you think about all the scaling, all of his combos, all of his spells are getting worse. So overall, this is like an 80 damage nerf at level 11. That's pretty significant. Number one reason to pick him in pro is to turn off the lights, the ultimate, not just as a gap closer, but as a tool to enable other people on your team, like a Sivir, to turn on their ultimate, and an enemy team won't be able to see it. Thresh, health growth goes up. Flay going up by a significant amount, 10 early and 30 late. Thresh is definitely that do everything support, right? Does everything, the canonical, just like ultimate support champion. The stats were low. I don't expect that to change based on how early people like to play, especially champions like Kalista. But Kalista getting nerfed, Misfortune getting nerfed, is indirectly a buff to Thresh already, so really he's getting 2 buffs. I don't see him overtaking the Enchanters, especially since there's a notable champion that's not in this patch notes. Udyr, lots of changes. All right, health growth going down, armor growth going down. The Wildling Claw, and this is a weird thing. I have a huge problem with this. I'm going to show you his win rate. All right, this is when he got changed. And this is the slope that happens after champions are not reverted, if they are updated or on release. You just always have this sort of curve. When you are Mordekaiser, it's actually a very simple champion, and the mastery curve is very low. This is what Mordekaiser's curve looks like. Okay? You play 50 games, you get over 50% very quickly. You don't have a huge drop off. Now you have champions like Yuumi, that was way down here. Gosh darn it. Then you have champions like Yuumi that look like this. All right? Where the skill cap is super, super high. So it takes a long time to get any amount of mastery on this champion. But when you do, it was way too broken. So they had to nerf it. They had to make her early game better. They had to make it simple. There's a lot of changes, right? So every champion falls along this pattern. The problem is that Udyr was on this trajectory. And if you remember how busted Yuumi was, Udyr is just on a similar curve, basically identical curve, but it's higher. All right, and this is going to be a problem because pros, they don't deal with the normal delay of multiple weeks for people to get information, watch a streamer do it, watch a clip to learn things. They are getting everything fast-tracked to them, right? So while most of the people are still here, this is what pro is already at, all right? These players already know. So Udyr is going to be a huge problem. Now, so let's take that into consideration when we look at the patch. The AP ratio goes up. We don't really care. Maybe Demonic Embrace is still part of the build, so maybe it does something, and maybe this opens up a Nashor's Tooth, but I doubt people are going to want to completely swap things before this. The mana cost is going significantly down, which means that you may not have those tier issues. A lot of people want Tear of the Goddess to solve the mana issues on Udyr. You're not going to need that anymore, at least for this Q build. Bit of a reach. Udyr's first 2 attacks gain 50 attack range. And this is where the huge problem is. You tell me that you're nerfing Udyr, but then you're also giving him an effect back. And this is what they did with Zeri, not once, but twice, where they're just fundamentally not understanding that the champion's kit was broken, right? Zeri could do multiple different things that no other champion does, and there's a reason that Ezreal didn't get played, and it wasn't because Ezreal was bad, it's because Zeri did everything better and safer. Her dash was better, you can create more space over terrain, it also gave you splash attacks, her Q can kill wards through bushes that you can't see, the W through a rock becomes a Luxalt, like, there's a million problems with Zeri, but what they did was they go, nerf, then they went nerf, but buff something else. And then they created a new problem, and they say, okay, let's nerf again, but let's buff something else, and it just ends up in this situation where you're not actually solving the problem, and Zeri still becomes broken. And by the way, even though she's 42% win rate in solo queue, she's still going to get picked at Worlds, I guarantee it. There is no champion that's better in the 1-3-1 scenario. She just is the best 1-3-1 carry in the game. She plays from mid, super safe. She's got multiple different walls to bounce around. We'll talk about that later when we get to the meta. Using that as a frame of reference, why are they also giving Udyr attack range on his Q? I don't get it. They're thinking maybe that because it's in the jungle, it doesn't really matter. But like the ability to chase and to empower the Q or empower something like Turtle Stance and then turn on Q, there's so many different options that the developers have no idea about that I guarantee that the pros have been investigating and pushing the limits on. I hate they've done this. Hate it. Awakened Q now deals an additional 2.5% based on level and more bonus AD, max health, physical damage. Again, like you say that you're nerfing the other effects, but then you're also buffing Q. This is going to create more issues. Percent heal is down to a flat 1.2. The percent HP shield is going down. This is a very small amount. Life steal is going up, kind of negating for this. You're not going to get as many broken shield bash smashes for 140 like you were before. Wingborn Storm, magic damage 20 to 110 is 20 to 100, and it's losing 5% AP. Again, the main effect of this is the slow, not the damage. Damage to minions from 50 to 80, going from 40 to 85 based on your levels, which is kind of weird. I'm surprised that they're doing this extra, like, oh, this is for lane. This is for lane game, right? They're changing it slightly for laning, so late game you have a little more ability to affect the lanes as you're pushing, because before you could turn on your empowered R and win a whole team fight, but then you go to a wave with a cannon in it and you press your empowered R and it wouldn't even clear the minion. Competitive changes, nothing to do with worlds. This is basically when you picked support and autofill, you gained immunity to being filled, and they backlined, or I should say backdoored some changes. So you should have noticed that you're getting filled less often, but now they'll show you when you're selecting a priority role, like, hey, we need more bot laners. And if you queue for bot lane, then you'll definitely get it. All right. Guaranteed autofill protection when queuing as a support or queuing as fill has been removed. All right. So we did talk about if you were a one trick of sort in a contested position like mid, there was actually a best way to do this. There was a little algorithm for how many games you play mid lane, then you play one game as support, and you can basically play a lot of your mid lane champions in support anyways, and then that'll guarantee you 3 more games in mid, but that's gone. If you have been autofilled, then you won't be for the next 2 games. Players you have honored are now available in the hey, come join with me. New skins, the Mythic shop has changed. Clash, I'll see you there. Hopefully you guys come out onto the Rift. If you have a Clash team and you mention this post and you see it, you guys can get 50% off coaching for your Clash team. Let me know about it. Challenges, changes, I don't care. Bugs, let's see anything that matters. Spear Visage was doubling some of the healing items on healing effects. Omnivamp on Riftmaker, that's gone. That's big. Fixed a bug unintentionally moving the cursor range for Xerath R. Some champion abilities were invisible for Mac users. This was enormous. Obviously, it doesn't matter for the players at Worlds, but Swain E and Akali E were becoming invisible. Both of those abilities are pretty important to see. Certain abilities to be visible and audible from Fog of War. So right as of yesterday, you could hover over the Rift Herald and hear whether or not they were taking it, right? You'd hear the eye pop. And we'll see if that's a change that's gone away. Fixed a bug where Zeri's W didn't fire through terrains and towers. We'll hope that this was a bug and this isn't just a buff. A bug that could cleanse Tom Kench's knockup. Talia was getting stuck not being able to cast things. Akshan is losing the ability to E and R. Not that he's going to see a lot of play, but that is a nerf to him. VFX on Kennen, no big deal. Pix was revealing Lulu in certain situations. That's going away. That's a pretty big deal. Progressions we don't care about. No big deal.